here also. Okay. The final part of our experiment 1, that is determining FFT of a signal. The FFT calculation is little bit tedious. Okay, that is beyond our scope. But what we can do is we can use the blocks directly available in LabVIEW in signal processing module, and that can be effectively used to display the spectrum of the signal or frequency domain content of the signal. Okay. So first let us simulate a signal under express input simulate signal. In previous class also I told you that the simulate signal is just simulating as if a data is coming from a data acquisition card. In case of data acquisition card, we will connect the physical signal to the DAC, and it will sample it and it will generate a signal. So after the DAC box, okay, if you used a data acquisition module, then there will be a block, and finally you will get an array of data. Simulate signal also is simulating similar kind of behavior. So sampling rate is 1000. If we keep it in mind, there is a sine wave. Let us create some control frequency. Create control amplitude frequency. I am varying. Okay. So if you take anything, it will be a time-stamped value. Okay. For sake of displaying it in the front panel under graph, there is an option called waveform graph. You choose a waveform graph and connect it to waveform graph. Now this is going to be like an oscilloscope. Okay. Our objective is to display the spectral component. That is, we take FFT and we will display the FFT coefficients for different frequencies. Okay. This data is a dynamic data. That means it has information about the time also. That's it's a time-stamped data. We will remove the timestamp. So for that, there is an option block called from dynamic data type. It will be available in express signal manipulation. Okay, result will be an array. Now, several options are available. I request you to explore through it. If you know about your input data, then you can correspondingly choose the type of data. It may be a single data, or it may be an array, or it may be even 2D array. You can reshape it, etc. Okay, so once it passes through from DDT block, the result will be just an array of data. Now we need to display the spectrum. Okay. If you right click in block diagram, under signal processing, under transforms, you have FFT, fast Fourier transform. So in that you need to give an array, and FFT size also we should give. Otherwise by default it will take it from the input array. If required, you can give the FFT size, otherwise you leave it as it is. The FFT is a complex, result will be complex. Let us display only the magnitude alone. We don't care about the phase. Yeah. Otherwise, we will also display magnitude and phase separate. Okay. If you search in numeric complex, okay, some blocks will be available. Complex to polar, that is Z to R comma theta. Now let us create another graph, from graph. This is magnitude. And this is base. typically these angles will be in radians. Okay. You see the context help. The theta will be typically in radians. We will convert it into degrees for our convenience. It's not mandatory. I'm just showing it. It's 180 by pi. So numeric constant somewhere pi will be there. This is here the results are displayed. Okay. The point to note here is actually in x-axis, since we are displaying the spectrum, it is frequency. It is not time that we need to change. This is phase. Another point to note here is our sampling period is actually 1000 hertz. Okay, if you see the simulate signal, our sampling period is 1000 samples per second. Okay. So if you see the x-axis, it is only 100. Okay. So it is not proper. Okay, 100 is the number of sample in the data. So what we have to do is we need to give separate x-axis, that is frequency axis component for both magnitude and phase. So for that, you cannot use waveform graph. Okay, intentionally I made a mistake and I am showing you another graph. The purpose of the third graph, that is XY graph. In XY graph, we will give both the x-axis value as well as y-axis value. In waveform graph, only one axis alone is sufficient. But in XY graph, you need to give data for both x-axis as well as y-axis. We have our frequency as 1000 samples per second. Let me create a for loop with 1001. We require how many number of data are there? Let me check. Let it be there, whatever maybe. Let me check the number of data. Later we will. Create. So 100 data are there. Let us stop it. Let us put a for loop. Array size. We will take it directly from the array. And this iteration count will take outside. This will give an array from 0 to final data. That is the length of the array. And it has to be multiplied. Okay, this is a signal system concept. That is this number of data that has to be multiplied by your sampling frequency and divided by the number of data. Our sampling frequency is 1000. And we divide it by the length of the signal. Now this is going to be your frequency axis, that is x-axis component. Now let us create xy graph, and we will feed both x as well as y components. In graph, we choose xy graph. This is for f of t amplitude or f of t magnitude. And x-axis is going to be frequency. And here this is phase. And this is f of t magnitude. We need to give, there is a concept called bundle. Okay, bundle is some kind of structure in C language. You can join data type of different kind of data type together, and you can create a bundle. So I am creating a bundle of the first element is your FFT magnitude data, and second element is, that is your x-axis component. I think x and y has to be in sequence. We cannot change it. 1 second. So the first element is your frequency component, that is x-axis, and second element in the bundle is our magnitude. The same way, I also create another bundle for phase. A bundle is something like structure in C language. You can put several data type together, and you can consider them as a single wire. It will be helpful while working with different type of related data. Okay. See, sometimes f of t. Okay, these are all some graphics works only, nothing technical. You may require different kinds of plot. Okay, f of t usually will be in the form of impulses. Okay, and so for that you can choose different kinds of plots available, and you can also work over different kinds of points. These things I leave it to you for your exploration. Okay, there is nothing big technical about it. You can just randomly hover over it, change it, and observe what is happening. Let me create 200 hertz signal, and this you can see from the FFT that the number of points is less. Okay. You can see from FFT that even though the sine wave is not exactly sine wave, but if you see in frequency domain, okay, even though I am calculating fast Fourier transform, the signal I have given is a periodic signal. So therefore, this FFT will look like a Fourier series. Okay, this is a single frequency component. So exactly at my frequency axis, I have maximum value. If you calculate Fourier series for this signal, it will be similar. And if I go on increasing the frequency, you can find that correspondingly your uh, the P component will be shifted. You just to play around these things. Okay. This is through this you can also understand what is meant by frequency domain, spectrum, etc. See, within 20 minutes, I have developed a mixed signal oscilloscope. What is the mixed signal oscilloscope? I can see my time domain data, I can see my frequency magnitude as well as my phase spectrum. That's all. So this is the advantage of LabVIEW. We can very rapidly prototype any application. I'll also with this I'll tell you another application. Okay, even though not directly related with our task, it may be required. Okay, somewhere for your projects you may require. See, sometimes you need to save the recordings as a file. Okay. So for that, in file IO, there is an option called write measurement file. Okay. You may need to record something. If you select that block, it will ask for several data, and if you connect anything to it, those data will be saved in PDF file. You don't have to do any other thing. See, these things you can explore it by yourself. Okay, by default it is saving as text.lvm. The LVM is a file which you can open with Excel. You know, and if a file is already present, you rename the file only one header only, x and y value. Okay, one column, a time column. See, these things you explore it by yourself. Nothing is special about it. If you choose to write to measurement file, and if you give any signal to it, if you run your program, automatically in the path specified, an LVM file will be created. LVM is more or less like a tab separated file. You can even open with Notepad. Okay. If you are convenient with the processing, this is the data available. If you feel it little bit inconvenient, you can open the same data in Excel also. Okay, that's all. So this data is available in Excel, and you can copy paste it wherever you like, and you can do any kind of offline works. Okay. The acquiring data and saving them is also very easy. Whatever your data, put it to this block, right to measurement file, that will be put in there. Okay. If you want to put more than one column, that is, for example, you want to, in a single file, you need to save two signals. Okay, so for that, there is an option in Express signal manipulation called merge signal. I am going little bit fast, but anyway, you can see this recording later. Let me save the same signal twice for the sake of demonstration. Okay, in the LABVIEW, in the LVM file, it will appear as a separate signal. Okay, as of now, what we have is a single channel only. That is, first column is the time, and second column will be your data. Okay. And now I have merged two signals. I have given the same signal only for demonstration, and if you run it once, old file will be backed up as backup.lvm, and let me delete it. This new file, if you look into it, it will have first time column, then your first signal, then second. So likewise, you can store any number of signals into a signal file. Then you can open with the Excel for offline process. Okay, this is the last task. Okay. So with this, I am finishing the first experiment. Okay. I will also share this recording with you. If whoever gets the recording in their Google Drive, please give me editor access. Once you have given me, I will share it with everyone. I will put it in Google Classroom. Okay. And what I want is, I also placed this file in the Google Classroom itself. Okay, within 2 to 3 days, I'll open an assignment in Moodle. Okay, Moodle instance have been created for this particular semester. Okay, please register in your corresponding class. Let me stop sharing. And I'll open an assignment, and you submit a Word file. Okay, in Word file, you enter the data as per the given sequence. First, we require aim, then algorithm bar formula for each task, then LabVIEW program. Okay, once you worked with LabVIEW, take a snapshot. That's all, and put it here. And output. Okay, after running the LabVIEW, what you are getting it, and output has to be confirmed with manual calculation. Okay. Manual calculation for convolution and all, you don't require manual calculation. Just to do it in MATLAB or Octave, and use that result. Okay. And ensure that the same result is displayed in LabVIEW. And finally, some inference. In inference, what I require is, being the first experiment, I want basics of LabVIEW and your understanding from this experiment. That's all. Finally, result. So in a Word file, you put everything in sequence, save it as a PDF file, and you need to upload it in Moodle. That I will consider for record. How many days you require for submission of this assignment?